All right, welcome in college football week 5. Plenty of great matchups, plenty of crazy line movement all week in a few games. We've got three best bets coming up for you. We've got three big game breakdowns you are not going to want to miss with three of the very best at wagertalk.com. And we're going to kick it right off with one of the best here in Steve Double R1L Merrill, who is going to take us to the SEC and possibly a revenge game here as South Carolina traveling to Tennessee to take on the Vols. Will they get it done is the big question, Steve.
Tennessee was a really explosive offensive team last year, one of the best in the nation. I think you could definitely make an argument they're a notch down this season, despite averaging 35 points a game, 6.5 yards per play. They haven't exactly been tested so far, other than playing Florida. Virginia's been a terrible defensive team when they opened up against Austin P, Texas San Antonio. So I do think this is a little bit of a step up in class, surprisingly, against South Carolina. It's not necessarily the South Carolina defense, but the South Carolina offense could give them some trouble in this game. And this is an explosive passing attack. Spencer Rattler just a couple seasons ago came in as the preseason favorite when he was at Oklahoma to win the Heisman Trophy. He's now been in South Carolina a couple seasons. The Gamecocks are averaging almost 10 yards per pass attempt. Every time he drops back this year has been a first down. And you contrast that to Tennessee, who's only averaging 7 yards per pass. So South Carolina is the most explosive offensive attack, at least throwing the ball here. Now, Tennessee does have a huge edge running the ball, 6.5 yards per carry. But Tennessee's strength, South Carolina's strength this year has been the run defense. They're giving up just 2.3 yards per carry. Their pass defense is giving up almost 9 yards per pass. So we have the Tennessee strength against the strength of the South Carolina defense. We definitely get some backdoor cover potential here with South Carolina as well. The problem, though, is my power ratings, my database simulation has Tennessee winning by 16.5 on average. And the current line, as we look at the Wager Talk live odds screen heading into the weekend, is only 11.5. And this total has come down a bit as well. Open 62.5, now down to 60.5 in a lot of locations. And I think that makes some sense because once again, the strength of the South Carolina defense is against that strong running attack. And by the way, Tennessee's defense has been surprisingly good this year. Their offense is maybe a little weaker, but their defense has been lights out. Just 17 points a game allowed, just 4 yards per play. And they're getting up just 5.9 yards per pass facing that strong South Carolina passing offense. So I understand why the line has come down here. And I would agree with the move. I think under the total is worth a look in this game.
All right, good stuff there, Steve. Appreciate that. Don't forget, quick suggestion if it's college football content you like, it is college football content we have. Simply hit that subscribe button now, guys, and get notified with all our great college football content coming your way. Next up, we bring in the one and only Mr. Adam Trigger, ready to go. He's going to take us to, well, the ACC, sort of, as Duke getting ready to take on Notre Dame. A lot of people think this could be a hangover spot there from a letdown a week ago at Notre Dame. What do you think, Trick?
I wanted to find a way to take Duke here. That was sort of how I came into the week thinking I might be on Duke plus the points. But unfortunately, Notre Dame lost last week in a really tight game with Ohio State, came down to the final play. Listen, that game could have gone either way, and I won't really get into Notre Dame and Ohio State, but let's just put it this way. Notre Dame was on the wrong side of a very close finish, and I think it's kept this number on the wrong side of 7 here. I would have wanted 7 with Duke. So because it's a little lower than that, even though I do lean toward the Duke side, tough to get involved there. But I do think that this could be kind of a dogfight, and it puts me toward the total being the better option in this game. I think this one probably stays under. So first, Mike Elko has done a fantastic job in general with Duke, but he's a great defensive coach, and he's really gotten this team, this Duke defense, improved big time from last year to this year. Some of which has to do with how experienced they are. They hadn't allowed a rushing touchdown yet this year. They're just very solid defensively, and they were able to ride that solid defense to a big win over Clemson. And of course, they haven't lost yet. Now, Notre Dame, on the other hand, they can probably move the ball on Duke, but if they're going to do it, it's going to have to be via the run on the ground. They're going to have to lean on a very, very good offensive line and move the chains by running the ball. And I also think from a game plan perspective, that's exactly how they're going to attack it because I just can't see Notre Dame, taking too many shots downfield and giving Duke's defense the chance to turn them over that way. If Notre Dame can get push up front, I think they're going to lean on that, try to run the ball, and try to control the clock here against Duke. Now, on the other side of the ball, Duke, to have a chance, is probably going to have to run the ball as well. Notre Dame's got a great secondary, very, very difficult team to throw on. And it just, in my opinion, Duke's going to have to get something going in the run game, or they're going to be punting that ball back to Notre Dame too often, and it's going to be tough for them to get the win here. But both of those things sort of lend themselves to this game staying under. The last point I kind of want to make about this game, and what put me on to the Duke side a little bit before I decided under was probably the way to go, is the spot. Go back to last year, Notre Dame, hard fought loss to Ohio State, and the next week they come out and lose to Marshall as a big favorite. This isn't quite the letdown spot that is, but we'll see if Marcus Freeman has what it takes to rally his team after really a gut-wrenching loss to Ohio State in a game that, you got down to the last 5 minutes or so. They probably thought they at least, I don't know if they should have won, but they probably thought it was theirs and they let it slip away. So a very slight lean to Duke here, a stronger lean to the under. Neither of these made my client card, but it's the way it would look in what I consider to be the biggest, or one of the biggest games on the board this weekend.
All right, Trig, good stuff there. We're going to take it to Rob Vino, who's going to break down another big SEC matchup. How about it? Alabama heading to Mississippi State, double digits here. You're looking at the side, you're looking at the total. How you looking at this, Rob?
Zach Arnett, first-year head coach of Mississippi State, is actually calling on all the fans here to help support the team in this crucial game against Alabama. It's at 8 o'clock at night Central start time, so certainly the rowdiness and the cowbell will be present in Starkville here for this one. Like I say, Arnett wants all the support he can get out there for this particular game. I wanted to be involved in this game from the start of the week. I just didn't know which way I felt more comfortable playing it. Side, total, first half, full game. Wasn't quite sure, but I feel like Alabama is on the verge of getting it right offensively. We now have an established quarterback. Nick Saban has told us Jalen Milroe's the QB. He goes out last week in that contest against Lane Kiffin in Mississippi, goes 17 of 21, 225 yards, 1 TD, 1 pick. That's a step in the right direction for Alabama, a team that has a lot of skill talent around him. Just look for the quarterback to settle in here. That was a pretty good indicator that maybe he's establishing himself as the guy right now. You have the game breakers on Alabama's offense matched up against a Mississippi State defense that's really been plagued by allowing big plays for much of the season. And big plays, not necessarily meaning just passes over the top, taking the top off a defense. Last week against South Carolina turned a 5-yard crossing pass into a 72-yard touchdown. So Mississippi State has allowed 4 TDs outside of the red zone in the last 2 weeks since SEC conference play started. It's a problem, and it doesn't take much to complete a short slant pass and watch one of the Alabama receivers go the distance. So I think there could be trouble for Mississippi State defensively in that regard. Obviously, they're looking to fix that. Whether or not they can fix it in time is another question. Alabama's balanced enough offensively. I think that they'll get the running part of this down, that where they can sort of keep Mississippi State in straight formations. On the Mississippi State side, it was interesting. They started the season offensively trying to lean on the run, and especially running back Jaquavius Marks, who got hurt last week, did return to the football game, but is questionable here in this one. But last week, rather than running the football, they went back to the air raid that Mike Leach implemented here. They threw for 487 yards against South Carolina. Now, South Carolina's pass defense is not the pass defense of Alabama. However, if you go back to the Texas game, you'll find out that Steve Sarkisian's crew threw for 349 yards against Alabama. So it's not like they're a lock-tight pass defense here. Maybe Mississippi State can find some seams in this D. The question really would be, can they protect quarterback Will Rogers? He's been sacked 8 times in the 2 SEC games the last 2 weeks, 4 each, 4 by LSU, 4 by South Carolina. And can they run enough to keep Alabama honest? Now, even if Marks doesn't play, Their OC, Tony Hughes, has full confidence in the backfield, listing it as maybe the deepest position group on the entire team. So they've got horses that can fill in. Again, the question will be, can they move Alabama's front and run the football enough to give Will Rogers more time? Ole Miss couldn't run the football whatsoever last week, and Lane Kiffin's had a problem with that all season long. But not being able to run the football led to some serious offensive trouble last week for the Rebels. They only had 301 total yards, only 4.6 per play. So Mississippi State's got to do those things right to move the football. Total's been pushed way down here. Perception that Alabama is just going to become this ground and pound all defense team. And I'm not quite sure Nick Saban wants it that way. He won that way last week. But I think he realizes down the road, we're going to have to score points if we want to get to where we want to get to. And like I say, I think that they're sort of on the verge here after watching Milroe's performance last week. They've been a run-heavy team all season long, 63% run, only 37% pass, but it hasn't led to any possession advantages here. Time of possession on the season, Alabama's only 14 seconds better than their opposition, 30:07 to 29:53. So they've even lost time of possession battle in 2 of those games. Again, I think Alabama's going to score enough here. I think Mississippi can get their share done to get over a number of 46, which really leaves us with the key numbers in our favor. 47, key number, good for us. 48, key number, good for us. I'm going to try it over 46, kind of buck the trend here that seems to be pushing this game under, and think that Alabama's really working on fixing that offense, and it'll bust out eventually. Hopefully we get about 27 out of them, 30 this week. I think that'll be enough to get over the total.
All right, there you go. 3 big game breakdowns. Now we've got 3 best bets coming your way. But before we do that, a quick reminder, if you have any questions about any of these games that these guys are breaking down for you today, or any game for that matter on the card in this week 4 of the college football season, actually week 5, of the college football season, drop those questions in the comment section. These guys will be keeping an eye on the section all weekend long. So if you got anything you'd like to know, drop those questions in there, and these guys will get back to you as we go full circle back to Steve Merrill here for his big game breakdown involving about a little Old Dominion taking on Marshall here. Steve, what do you got for us?
Good look at a free play for Saturday afternoon in college football this Saturday, September the 30th. Last day of the month, October right around the corner. Not a bad time to check out an all sports, all access special for the rest of 2023 at wagertalk.com. Get every sport, every play, baseball, football, basketball for the rest of the year for just over $7 a day. No promo code needed. Or if you're football only, you want the rest of my college and pro football seasons all the way through February, get that for just over $5 a day with promo code SMCombo. Full details, all the promo codes on my page right now, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com. Game that just missed the cut for me on Saturday. And by the way, I do have 3 strong best bets for Saturday college football locked and loaded for my clients right now at wagertalk.com. But a game that was just a bit outside for making the cut. A little bit of an under-the-radar selection here. And that's Marshall, minus the 14.5. Now, I wish this line was 14 or less. Would like it a little bit more if this does drop that half point off that key number. But either way, this line is too short. First of all, by database simulation, 10,000 games has Marshall winning by an average of about 19.5, 20 points in this game. And just some simple math shows you the line should be higher. Old Dominion was a 16-point dog at Virginia Tech and lost by 19 in week 1. We had a strong best bet on Virginia Tech in that game, so I remember it well. And then just last week, Marshall, a 6-point home favorite, wins by 7 over Tech. That's a difference of 22 points in the line. So even if you factor in a few points for home field each way, that's 18, 19. So this line is too short, even at 14.5. And I also like the matchup. Yes, Marshall's faced a pretty weak schedule of opponents other than Virginia Tech this season, but they've gotten the job done. They're perfect 3-0 straight up. They're 2-1 ATS. And their defense has surprisingly been really good. Just 15.5 points a game allowed, just 4.4 yards per play. And their pass defense has been one of the best in the nation, giving up just 4.6 yards per pass attempt. And that's important because Old Dominion is a pass-heavy offensive attack. Coming off the bye week, they did play well the 2 weeks before that with back-to-back covers, threw for over 10 yards per pass. But that's how you stop Old Dominion. They're going to rely heavily on the pass attack. And I think Marshall matches up really well here. On the other side of the coin, Marshall throws the ball well, 7.5 yards per pass attempt, and Old Dominion's pass defense has been awful this year. So it's a good matchup. I look for Marshall to win the battle through the air, and that'll also make it easier for them to win and cover this double-digit line. Take a look at Marshall minus the 14.5. That goes at 3:30 Eastern on Saturday afternoon. And don't forget, if you want my strongest best bets, my 3 strongest plays, a 3-for-1 special right now for Saturday college football, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com.
All right, good stuff there, Steve. Appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, guys. Hit that like and subscribe button, and you'll have access to all our college football content. A little something for everybody here, as we'll send it over to Adam Trigger in an interesting one. How about TCU taking on West Virginia in what remains of the Big 12 here? Trig, who are you looking at in this one between West Virginia and TCU?
So my best bet for the show is going to be TCU minus the points. But first, real quick, I do have a 5% play going tonight, Friday night in college football. I've hit 5 straight games. So I've got a nice little winning streak going into tonight, and hopefully we can make it 6 in a row with a 5% max bet in college football this evening. But back to my best bet for the show, it's going to be TCU minus the points. Again, their just line has moved a little bit, but I still think anything, less than 14 is probably good here. Looks like 13.5 is widely available, and there's some 13s as well. I would shop around and try to get a 13 if you like TCU. Listen, I think for the first time in probably about a year and a half, maybe, or maybe a year, TCU might actually be pretty underrated. They come out and lose their opener, 45-42 to Colorado, of course, the game that has sort of been talked about all year long, but they lost a tough game by 3 points in a game where they rolled up 541 yards of total offense, could have easily won. Big 4th down conversion for Colorado, came out on the wrong side of it. Went from being ranked, I believe, 17th in the country going into that game to now still on the outside of the top 25 looking in. And I just don't really feel like that should be the case at this point. Since then, they've blown out 2 respectable teams in Houston and SMU. Haven't scored less than 34 points in any single game. And I think they can potentially run West Virginia out of Texas, with this game here. So West Virginia, pretty fortunate. They've won now 3 in a row, getting wins over Texas Tech and Pitt. Didn't score 20, didn't break 20 in either of those games, yet still won the game. Last week benefited from Texas Tech's quarterback getting hurt, having to leave the game. So I just think West Virginia, might kind of come back to earth here. They're probably still without their quarterback, Garrett Green. He hasn't played, believe he was injured very early in the Pitt game, hasn't played since. But I think it makes them sort of a run-heavy, predictable offense that TCU should have no issues with. And then on the flip side, I really think TCU's in position to put up points and pull away, which is why I kind of think this number is a little short. West Virginia has not gone on the road since the very first week of the season. Went up to Penn State, pretty quick trip, and lost by 28 points. 23. It lost right at the end. There was a late touchdown scored in that game that caused them not to cover. But now we're getting TCU at a much sort of more of a bargain price here. So just the spot coming off the back-to-back wins, big wins for West Virginia over a rival Pitt as an underdog over Texas Tech, makes this feel like a really tough spot to go on the road and win again. And just to sort of take it to the next step, I don't know that they can. Even if they do hang around for stretches in this game, this feels like a spot where TCU just kind of, keeps coming offensively and probably, extends that lead to more than 2 scores. So even after the move, I still think this number is a little bit short. Anything under 14, it feels like a great spot for TCU and a really tough spot for West Virginia. So I would lay the 2 scores here with TCU. Horned Frogs minus 13.5 is my best bet for the show.
All right, good stuff there, Trig. Appreciate that. One more best bet coming your way. Rob Vino ready to go. San Diego State and Air Force in one of the truly great degenerate late night specials that we have here. Vino, tell me how you looking at this one. Side, total, what do you got for a best bet?
Okay, for the best bet this week, we're going to take a look at another number here. And I've seen a bunch of these across college football the first 4 weeks of the season. or 5 weeks of the season, if we count week 0, where it just seems like perception is what's being hung rather than what's currently going on the field. Here we're looking at a San Diego State Air Force game, Mountain West Conference action, where the total is listed at 43. Obviously, based on perception of San Diego State and Air Force being slow, methodical offenses, grind clock, end the game, 7-3 final. Not quite the story here. Let's start with this San Diego State defense. Again, perception. Ask 100 people about San Diego State's defense. 98 of them are going to tell you, hey, they're tough at the line of scrimmage, but they're not tough at the line of scrimmage this year. San Diego's run defense in the last 3 games, 254 rushing yards allowed to UCLA, 6.5 a carry. 191 rushing yards allowed to Oregon State, 6.0 a carry. 241 rushing yards allowed to Boise State last week, 5.9 per carry. That's not San Diego State. Those numbers belong in the bottom of the NCAA 133 team rankings. So they're not the same run defense. That's bad news against Air Force, which is running at a clip as good as any that they've run at over the course of the last 5-6 seasons. San Diego State offensively, and honestly, until last week, kind of viewed as a stagnant offense that can't do anything right. And that would be a pretty good assessment of what they showed us the first 3 weeks. However, last week against Boise State, which is not a horrendous defense, quarterback Jalen Maiden breaks out. He goes 16 of 22 for 241 yards and a TD. San Diego State, as a team where their passing game is concerned, breaks out in that contest. Again, this is against Boise State. Maiden, a dual threat quarterback, combines that with 16 carries for 85 yards, 5.3 per carry. All of a sudden, you look up and you got a couple of wide receivers for San Diego State, Brooks and Penny, that are averaging 23.4 a reception last week and 19.4 per reception. Those two guys combined for 214 passing yards receiving. So again, San Diego State put a little explosiveness into that lineup last week, into that offense. And it looks like something that may be able to carry over here because Air Force, they're very tough front seven. But you get behind that front seven, and they've allowed 248 passing yards to Utah State and 239 to San Jose State in the last 2 weeks. So again, it looks like there's opportunity there. Air Force likes to crowd the line of scrimmage, especially if they think you're a running football team, which San Diego State shows most that they are. I think we might see some big plays here out of San Diego State as well. The last thing to conquer here is the fact that when you're going to play over, you need a lot of possessions, and a pushback to this might be, oh, well, you're not going to get enough possessions to get over. I would say, first off, you're only trying to get over 43, which doesn't take a boatload of possessions. And secondly, if you look at what Air Force has done, who cares? They take possessions and they score. Last week, they had the ball 8 times. They scored 7, 6 TDs and a field goal. The week before, they only had the ball 9 times against Utah State. They scored 6 times, 5 touchdowns and a field goal. So they take the ball and they score. And already we know that San Diego State's run defense has been lousy 3 consecutive weeks, and they're probably a little bit beat up when you go back through the opponents that I listed, pretty physical at the point of attack. I think quarterback Zach Larrier, my biggest question about Air Force heading into the season was, could anybody replace Hazik Daniels, who was really a tremendous quarterback for Air Force, and Larrier's done it. Again, their run game looks as good as it ever has. I think you have to take advantage of a perception number that's being hung right now with what's really going on the field, which is totally different than what 43 would suggest. I'm going to try it over 43 points, San Diego State and Air Force.
All right, and there you got it. 3 big game breakdowns, 3 best bets for you. And a quick reminder, if it's college football content you like, it's college football content we have here at Wager Talk TV. Just simply click on that video on your screen right now, and you will be taken and have access to all our top 25 college football previews and all the best bets from all week here on Wager Talk TV. Good luck.